What if I told you there's a type of cancer that sneaks up on you in silence, showing almost no symptoms until it's far too late? A cancer so aggressive, so deadly, that nearly 9 out of 10 people diagnosed with it won't live to see 5 more years. That cancer is pancreatic cancer, the silent assassin of the human body. Most people have never even thought about their pancreas, let alone worried about it. It hides quietly behind your stomach, working every day to regulate your blood sugar and help digest your food. But when this small, overlooked organ turns against you, it becomes one of the most lethal threats known in modern medicine. Today we're going to uncover why pancreatic cancer is so devastating, why it disguises itself so well, why treatment often fails, and what, if anything, can be done to fight back. Welcome to the Wellness Way. If you care about your health, your future, and the hidden dangers no one talks about, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this video. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support gives us the drive to bring you more powerful stories that just might save a life. There are moments when a simple fact can stop you in your tracks. And for me, one of those moments came when I learned about pancreatic cancer. I had always assumed that all cancers were somewhat equal, that they were all terrifying, but at least detection and treatment gave you a fighting chance. But then I discovered that pancreatic cancer stands apart as one of the deadliest forms of cancer in the world. It isn't just another disease on the long list of medical threats. It's something darker, more elusive, and far more devastating. The numbers themselves are shocking. Only about 12 to 13% of people diagnosed with pancreatic cancer survive beyond 5 years. Put another way, if 100 people are told today that they have this disease, fewer than 15 of them will still be alive in 5 years. Compare that to breast cancer, prostate cancer, or even colon cancer, and the difference is staggering. While medical science has made huge strides in early detection and treatment for many cancers, pancreatic cancer remains an almost unsolved puzzle. It hides until the late stages, and by then, the options for survival are slim. That's what makes it so unique and so frightening. The pancreas isn't an organ we think about every day. Most people couldn't point to where it is in their body. It sits tucked away behind the stomach, quietly managing 2 of the most important tasks for life: producing hormones like insulin and glucagon to control blood sugar, and secreting digestive enzymes that help break down the food we eat. It's like a behind-the-scenes worker in a theatre production, rarely acknowledged but absolutely essential. And maybe that's part of the reason pancreatic cancer feels so unfair. The pancreas serves us faithfully every day, without any of the recognition, until suddenly it betrays us in the most vicious way possible. What really shocked me when I dug deeper was how silent pancreatic cancer is at the beginning. With most diseases, there are warning signs, subtle or obvious cues that something is wrong. A lump, a persistent cough, unexplained weight loss. These push people to see a doctor. But with pancreatic cancer, the early symptoms are so vague, so ordinary, that they slip under the radar. A little back pain. Most people chalk that up to poor posture or an old mattress. Some abdominal discomfort. Blame it on indigestion or stress. By the time something unmistakable appears, like jaundice, the yellowing of the skin caused by a tumour blocking bile ducts, the disease has already advanced. And once it advances, the chances of survival drop like a stone. It feels almost like the cancer is playing a cruel trick, staying invisible until it's too late to fight back. That is why I call it a master of disguise. It pretends to be harmless, blending in with the noise of everyday aches and pains, until the truth comes crashing down in the doctor's office with a diagnosis that changes everything. The tragedy doesn't stop there. Unlike other cancers, we don't have a reliable screening method for pancreatic cancer. There's no equivalent to a mammogram for breast cancer or a colonoscopy for colon cancer. If you're not in a high-risk group or showing very clear symptoms, doctors usually don't go looking for pancreatic cancer. And because of that, the disease keeps its grip on secrecy. By the time anyone realizes it's there, it has often spread beyond the pancreas, sometimes to the liver, lungs, or bones, leaving patients with odds that are heartbreaking. To me, that's the most unsettling part. We live in a time when medical technology is more advanced than ever, and yet this one cancer continues to evade us. It's as if we're fighting an enemy who knows all our weaknesses. Pancreatic cancer doesn't just hide, it resists. Even when it is detected, treatments like chemotherapy and radiation often fail because the tumors protect themselves with a dense wall of tissue, a kind of armor that shields them from drugs and the immune system. Imagine fighting an enemy who not only ambushes you in the dark but also wears body armor you can't penetrate. That's what makes pancreatic cancer so different and so deadly. And yet, despite all this, most people hardly know about it until someone they love or someone famous gets diagnosed. That lack of awareness is part of what makes the disease so insidious. I can't count how many conversations I've had where people are shocked by the survival rates, almost unable to believe them. But this disbelief is exactly what allows the cancer to keep winning. If we don't understand how dangerous it is, we don't take steps to reduce our risks or pay attention to the subtle signals. This is why I believe the story of pancreatic cancer deserves to be told differently, not just as a dry set of statistics or a textbook definition, but as a wake-up call, a confrontation with the harsh reality of what happens when the body's quietest organ turns into a silent assassin. We need to recognize the ways it deceives us, the reasons it's so hard to treat, and the small steps we can take in our daily lives to lower our chances of ever facing it. Because while the science is still catching up, there are choices within our control. Every time I read the survival numbers, I feel a mix of fear and determination. Fear, because they remind me how fragile life is. Determination, because it pushes me to learn, to share, and to change the way I live. And maybe that's the hidden lesson inside this deadly disease. It forces us to see our health differently, to value prevention over reaction, to take seriously the quiet parts of our body that we too often ignore. Pancreatic cancer may be one of the deadliest diseases known today, but it doesn't have to remain only a story of despair. The more we understand about its silence, its disguise, and its aggression, the better chance we have at turning the tide. And that begins with awareness, right here, right now. When I first learned where the pancreas actually sits in the body, I was surprised. It hides behind the stomach, long and flat, stretching quietly across the abdomen. You don't feel it, you don't notice it, and most people could go through their entire lives without thinking twice about this organ. And yet, when pancreatic cancer strikes, it's this quiet location that gives the disease such a devastating advantage. It's like a villain hiding in the shadows of a crowded city. No one sees it coming until the damage is beyond repair. Think about what the pancreas does. Every meal we eat, every sip of sugar-filled coffee, every bite of bread, it is the pancreas that helps us handle it. By releasing insulin and glucagon, it keeps our blood sugar in balance. By secreting digestive enzymes, it makes sure we actually get nutrition from the food we swallow. In a way, it is the silent engineer of survival, a background worker who never asks for recognition. That is why, when I picture the pancreas turning cancerous, I can't help but feel a sense of betrayal. It's as if a loyal guard who has protected you all your life suddenly turns into an assassin from within your own walls. But this assassin doesn't announce its attack. It doesn't send clear warnings or loud alarms. Instead, it gives small hints, maybe some back pain, maybe a bit of abdominal discomfort, that most of us would never interpret as life-threatening. By the time real symptoms appear, the tumour is often large, sometimes 4 or 5 centimetres, and has already invaded nearby tissues. Imagine trying to fight a fire only after it has burned through half the house. That's the cruel reality of pancreatic cancer. The more I learned, the more I realised why this cancer has such a terrible reputation. First, the lack of early symptoms makes it nearly impossible for ordinary people to recognise. Second, unlike other cancers, there isn't a universal screening test, no simple blood test, no routine scan. With colon cancer, we have colonoscopies. With breast cancer, we have mammograms. But with pancreatic cancer, unless you're at extremely high risk, doctors don't have a standard tool to check for it. This absence of detection is like fighting blindfolded. We know the threat exists, but we can't see it until it's already too late. And then comes the third and perhaps most infuriating reason pancreatic cancer is so deadly. It's sheer resistance to treatment. Even when doctors do find it, the cancer seems built to withstand the weapons of modern medicine. Chemotherapy and radiation, treatments that can shrink or destroy other tumours, often fail against pancreatic cancer. Why? Because these tumours are not only aggressive, they're strategic. They form a dense protective wall of tissue around themselves, called stroma, which acts like armour. This armour shields the cancer from drugs and even from the body's immune system. I found myself almost angry when I read about this, angry at how intelligent and cruel biology can be, how this disease can both hide and defend itself with such precision. The irony is that the pancreas itself is such a vital multitasker, but once cancer takes hold, it transforms into an enemy that uses its position and biology against us. It spreads quickly, not just inside the pancreas but to nearby organs and lymph nodes. Once it travels beyond the pancreas, survival rates collapse. If the cancer is caught early and confined to the pancreas, the 5-year survival rate can be as high as 44%. But the moment it spreads regionally, that rate drops to 16%. And if it travels to distant organs like the liver or lungs, survival plummets to just 3%. 3. That means almost every person in that stage will not live 5 more years. Numbers like these don't just inform you, they shake you to your core. I couldn't help but compare this situation to other cancers. Breast cancer used to have grim statistics, but awareness campaigns, early detection methods, and better treatments have changed the story. Colon cancer, too, has seen survival improve because of widespread screening. So why is pancreatic cancer left behind? Why do we accept that there is still no reliable screening? It feels like a cruel paradox of modern medicine. We can put people on the moon, we can map the human genome, yet we still cannot catch pancreatic cancer before it spreads. That question gnaws at me, because behind every statistic is a human life, a family, a story cut short. When I think about all of this, I don't just see it as a medical challenge. I see it as a moral one. How many more people will lose their battles simply because their cancer was invisible until it was too late? And what does it say about us if we don't push harder for solutions? Awareness is part of the answer, but research and innovation are desperately needed. Until then, pancreatic cancer will remain a predator, exploiting our blind spots and outpacing our treatments. What makes this even more haunting is how ordinary the first signs can be. Back pain, weight loss, fatigue, things so common that almost everyone experiences them at some point. This is the cruel disguise of pancreatic cancer. It hides in plain sight, making people second guess whether they're just tired, stressed, or aging. By the time they seek medical help, the disease has already stolen the most precious advantage in medicine: time. And yet, within all this despair, there is also a strange sense of clarity. Pancreatic cancer teaches us that not every battle is won with technology alone. It reminds us of the importance of vigilance, of listening to our bodies, and of demanding better answers from science. It challenges us to think critically about prevention and to question the comfort of assuming we'll always have time to fix things later. Because with this disease, later is almost always too late. So when I tell the story of pancreatic cancer, I don't just want to list its symptoms or explain its biology. I want to expose its cunning, its silence, and its resistance. I want people to feel the urgency that I felt when I first discovered how deadly it really is, because awareness is the first crack in the armor of this hidden enemy. The more we understand its tricks, the more we can fight back, not just as patients, but as a society determined not to let silence be a death sentence. When you hear the words treatment for cancer, there's a certain expectation. We imagine chemotherapy, radiation, maybe even surgery, and although these treatments are grueling, we believe they will at least give patients a fighting chance. But with pancreatic cancer, that expectation quickly crashes against a much harsher reality. The truth is that by the time most people are diagnosed, treatment is less about curing and more about buying time. There is, however, one path that offers real hope: surgery. If the cancer is caught early enough, when it's still confined within the pancreas, patients may qualify for a complex operation known as the Whipple procedure. I remember reading about this surgery for the first time. It's not just removing the tumor. It often involves cutting out part of the pancreas, the duodenum, the gallbladder, and even part of the stomach. The sheer scale of it made me realize how invasive the battle against this cancer has to be. Surgeons work in a delicate area, crowded with vital structures, and it requires immense skill to navigate without causing fatal complications. But when successful, this surgery can change the story. It can give patients a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance, to live longer, sometimes even to be considered cured. Yet here is the catch. Only about 15 to 20% of patients are diagnosed early enough to qualify. For the majority, this door remains shut. That leaves chemotherapy and radiation as the primary tools. But even here, pancreatic cancer bends the rules. These tumors, as I mentioned earlier, build a dense protective barrier around themselves. It's almost like a fortress, keeping out the very drugs designed to destroy them. Chemotherapy often struggles to penetrate deeply enough to be effective, and radiation, while sometimes helpful, cannot fully overcome the disease's aggressive nature. Doctors still use these treatments, of course, because in some cases they can slow the cancer's spread or shrink tumors enough to relieve symptoms. But for too many patients, the results are limited, and the side effects weigh heavily against the benefits. So the pressing question becomes, if medicine cannot reliably save us once the disease takes hold, what can we do? The answer shifts the focus away from treatment and toward prevention and awareness. Pancreatic cancer has risk factors, and some of them are under our control. Smoking, for example, doubles the risk. Obesity, a sedentary lifestyle, and poorly managed type 2 diabetes also increase the chances. Heavy alcohol use can lead to chronic pancreatitis, which further raises the risk. These are areas where choices matter. No one can eliminate the risk entirely, but each step toward healthier living builds a barrier of protection. It's a sobering thought that while science struggles to cure pancreatic cancer, the everyday decisions we make about food, exercise, and habits could quietly shape whether we face it at all. Of course, not everything is within our control. Family history and genetics play undeniable roles. Some people carry inherited mutations that significantly increase their risk. For them, awareness becomes even more crucial. If someone has close relatives who have battled pancreatic cancer, informing a doctor could mean earlier genetic testing and closer monitoring. It won't guarantee prevention, but it increases the chances of catching something before it spirals out of control. In a disease defined by late detection, even a small head start can be life-saving. I often think about how unfair it feels. We want medicine to provide certainty, to give us a clear path forward. With other cancers, that path exists. Routine screenings, proven treatments, structured plans. With pancreatic cancer, it feels like stepping into fog. Patients and families are left with uncertainty, hoping for breakthroughs that haven't yet arrived. But this is why stories like this matter, because awareness is part of the fight. The more people understand the risk factors and recognize the silent danger, the more lives can potentially be saved by prevention and vigilance. And there is another angle we can't ignore: the future. Research is ongoing, and scientists are working tirelessly to develop better detection methods. There's promise in genetic testing, new imaging techniques, and even blood markers that might one day make screening possible. Clinical trials are testing combinations of therapies that could break through the cancer's defenses. It's not enough yet, but the momentum is building. Every breakthrough starts with awareness, funding, and demand for answers. If society continues to underestimate pancreatic cancer, research will lag. But if enough people recognize how dangerous it is, resources and attention will follow. To me, the lesson here is simple but urgent. Pancreatic cancer shows us that silence can be deadly. Not just the silence of symptoms hiding in the body, but the silence of society ignoring the disease. We can't afford to look away. We can't dismiss it just because it's less common than other cancers. Its rarity doesn't make it less cruel. In fact, it makes it easier for people to underestimate until it's too late. That's why I often ask myself, and now I ask you, if you knew a disease could kill silently, without giving you a chance to fight back, what changes would you make today to lower your risk? Would you quit smoking? Would you exercise more, eat healthier, or finally get that checkup you've been putting off? Prevention may not feel heroic in the moment, but in the case of pancreatic cancer, it may be the closest thing to armor we have right now. So, yes, pancreatic cancer is terrifying. It hides, it resists, it spreads. It turns one of the body's quietest workers into a ruthless killer. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. We have choices about how we live, about how much awareness we spread, and about how much we demand from science. Each of those choices is a strike against the silence, a step toward a future where this disease no longer holds the upper hand. And that future begins with us, right here, deciding not to let ignorance or complacency become part of the cancer's disguise. When I step back and look at everything I've learned about pancreatic cancer, the overwhelming feeling is one of humility. This disease doesn't just kill, it humbles us. It reminds us that even in a world of advanced medicine, With technology that can sequence our DNA and machines that can peer deep inside the body, there are still battles we don't know how to win. And that is a sobering reality. But in that sobering truth, I also see something deeply human, our need to adapt, to take responsibility for what we can control, and to refuse to let silence define our future. Pancreatic cancer is a silent killer, not just because it hides inside the body, but because for too long society has been silent about it. People don't talk about the pancreas, they don't think about it. And that lack of awareness gives the disease an advantage. Awareness then is more than information, it is a weapon. It is the first crack in the armor of an enemy that thrives on secrecy. Personally, learning about this disease has changed how I think about my own health. I've realized how easy it is to dismiss small signals from the body, how tempting it is to assume that a little pain or fatigue is nothing serious. But the truth is, listening to our bodies, really listening, can sometimes be the difference between catching something early and letting it grow unchecked. I've also recognized that lifestyle is not just a buzzword thrown around by wellness magazines. The science is clear. Smoking, obesity, lack of exercise, and poor management of conditions like diabetes increase the risk of pancreatic cancer. These are not abstract ideas. They are real, actionable ways to protect ourselves. And maybe that is the deeper lesson pancreatic cancer offers us. That prevention is not optional, it is essential. We can't always control our genetics or our family history, but we can control the choices we make each day. Choosing to move our bodies, to eat with more care, to quit harmful habits and to get regular checkups. These are not small acts. They are acts of defense, shields we raise against one of the most dangerous threats we may ever face. So, what do we do with this knowledge? For me, it's about applying it in the quiet, ordinary moments of life. Going for a walk instead of skipping exercise. Saying no to that extra cigarette or drink. Making time for a doctor's visit instead of pushing it off. These are choices we can make today, before silence becomes too powerful to break. And now I want to ask you, knowing what you know about pancreatic cancer, what is one small change you would be willing to make in your lifestyle starting today? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and others might be inspired by your perspective too. And if this message resonated with you, please subscribe to The Wellness Way. Your support not only helps this channel grow, it helps spread life-saving awareness, one story at a time.